Welcome to the Rinkside Rundown podcast, your ultimate destination for all things women's hockey with your host, Chris Sinclair, proud member of the Hockey Podcast Network. Hello and welcome back to the Rinkside Rundown podcast. Today I am incredibly excited to be joined by Michaela Schreiter and Vanessa Sanchez, co-hosts of She's Got Game, available on TSN 1200, a show all about highlighting the amazing women playing the sports they love. Welcome to the show. How are you two doing?
We're great. Thank you for having us. This is so exciting.
We're very, very excited to be here. Thank you for having us. And I'm sorry again about the dead plant back there. I really am regretting that choice of having a dead plant.
Just call it out right away.
It's there.
You know what? Let's address it. Let's address the elephant in the room right off the bat. I love that.
I had to.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. The good news is it still looks alive from this distance. So
okay.
Yeah, I still call that a win.
Thank you so much. There's 2 leaves on top that I think are still intact. We're good.
Better than none. All right. Well, we've set the tone for this interview. So
Yep.
This is gonna be great. This is going to be great. I love this. So, I can't stress enough just how much I've been looking forward. I wish that when I had asked for you two to join me on this episode, that we were recording the next day, because I've been so excited to have the two of you on. I've been sitting anxiously every day, excited about having you two on. This is the biggest podcast episode we've had, and I'm so excited for you two to be here, for us to be able to get to learn a little bit more about you, your pre-media career, your current career, get a bit of an idea as to what you're thinking about the PWHL. And then we have a great fun game at the end to really, just like loosen things up, I'm really excited about that.
Oh, us too.
Us too.
I love a game.
Okay.
Is there a chance to
Vanessa's
win?
very good at games.
I love games.
Yeah.
I get really competitive.
As soon as you were saying she's really good at games, Vanessa was like, is there a way I can win?
Yeah.
So
if there's no winning, there's no point in playing.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. She is going to be terribly disappointed. All right, so let's dive in. This is a hockey-related podcast. You two host a sports-themed show, and so I think it's only natural that we start off with what it was about sports that grabbed your attention. Let's throw it to Vanessa first.
Oh my goodness. I'm actually the wrong person to start with because, I've been a sports fan my whole life. I grew up in a sports loving household. I didn't play very well, but I like tennis, golf for my sports. I had to stick to individual sports because I took the losses in team sports too hard, and my parents had to take me out of soccer at the age of 5. It was a whole thing. But I've just loved sports my whole life. Worked kind of in sports since university, but the show specifically it was Michaela's baby. Michaela was the one who started this. She has a very long history of sports media, and you take it away, Michaela. She's Got Game is your brainchild.
Well, before we get into that, though, because I definitely want to be able to highlight that.
Yeah.
But you say that you're the wrong person to start this conversation with, but I would say you're actually a perfect person to start this conversation with because you're a fan, right? So
True.
You've been a fan. So I'll be honest, I played sports kind of mostly mediocrely throughout my career. But I've been a fan for my entire life, and I think there's value there. So what was it about just because you weren't playing sports? What was it about sports that drew you in? What was it about? What was it? Was it the team aspect of it? Was the strategy, all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, I think I have a natural competitive streak. My dad is the sports fan and my mom is the competitive one, and so I just came out as a monster of the two of those things put together. And I think sports are one of those it's like the thing that brings my family together. I'm very family oriented. I have a very Mediterranean family, Italian and Spanish. And so we spend a lot of time together. Every story I have revolves around them in some way. And that's the thing that brings us all together. And so to me, sports is like one of those family things, one of those comfort things. Like if I'm not feeling great, if I'm sad, if I'm whatever, like I put sports on TV and then I'm good. And
now,
like
if
you
it's
said,
a
like,
Jets game, does that make you feel better? Listen, Vanessa
complicated.
deserves extra credit. She's a Jets fan.
I am so sorry. I am so sorry, but it just shows your dedication to sports.
It sure does. I'm from a Steelers household. My dad's a Steelers fan, but I chose to be a little bit different as a child, and I've had to live with that decision my whole life. And it's not cute. It's not fun. But this is the life I chose as a sports fan, and the New York Jets are it for me. That's the team.
But that's what sports is all about. You pick your team, you stick with it, you bleed their colors, and even if they aren't great, which would be a stretch for the Jets, but not to add salt to the wound. Michaela, why don't you tell us a little bit about what was it about sports? We'll leave She's Got Game to a little bit later, because I really want to be able to talk about how that started and the relationship between the two of you. But what was it about sports that really grabbed your attention?
Yeah, so I've played sports pretty much my entire life. Very like mediocrity, mediocrely, whatever the word is. Clearly, I work in media.
Yeah, I set you up for failure on that one. When
I've never been very good, but I've played hockey since I think I was 5 years old when I started playing hockey. And the only reason I started playing hockey was because I lived in a very small town in deep into the Ottawa Valley. And all of my friends were boys, and they were all at the age of 5. That's when you start playing hockey, and they were all starting to play hockey. And I was so jealous of all the stuff they were getting, like all the equipment. And so I was like, I want to play hockey. No idea why. I just wanted the stuff that they were getting. So my dad, who's a huge hockey fan, who had been waiting since the day I was born for me to say I wanted to play hockey, he left the house and did not come back until he had every piece of hand-me-down equipment from his friends' kids for me to wear, which is wonderful. And so I started playing hockey then. I was the only girl, obviously playing boys hockey at that stage. And then we moved to a different town, and I was one of 2 girls playing hockey in my boys league. But I loved it. I fell in love with it. I was having so much fun. My parents kind of threw me in every sport to see what I would like. I played hockey, I played soccer, I played t-ball, I think. But hockey and soccer were the ones that I stuck with. And I think around the age of 13, I played competitive soccer until about 13 or 14. And then I had to kind of choose. That's when summer hockey became a thing. So it was which one do you want to do? And I went with hockey. And yeah, my dad is a huge sports fan. My mom is not. So he and I would just watch hockey all the time together. And I remember when I was 8 years old, the Nagano Olympics were happening. It was the first time that women's hockey was in the Olympics. And my dad sat me down in front of the TV and said, "You have to watch this." And I had no idea that women could play hockey as adults, let alone on TV. So it completely blew my mind. I fell in love with Haley Wickenheiser right then and there, and she has been my idol ever since. And so, yeah, that's that's how I fell in love with women's hockey specifically. Obviously, I've been a Sens fan growing up in the Ottawa Valley since I was a kid. I have, much like Vanessa's relationship with the Jets, it's not exactly happy memories necessarily, but I digress. And I really kind of grabbed women's hockey was what pulled me into women's sports in general. And at London 2012, everyone remembers the semifinal game between Canada and the US in women's soccer. I fell in love with soccer then, and I've been a massive soccer fan since then. And I've always been a big sports fan. Hockey was kind of my main thing, but over the last about, I'd say 10 to 12 years, I started to gravitate more towards women's sports in general, just because it became more available very slowly. And it was amazing watching people I could relate to do these amazing things versus the men male athletes that I grew up watching. But that's how I fell in love with sports. And again, it hasn't always been good times, but we made our decisions and we're here now.
And now a word from our sponsor.
This episode is sponsored by Durant Barristers. Durant Barristers is a proud supporter of women's sports and is an inaugural sponsor of the Rinkside Rundown podcast. Durant Barristers provides legal services for athletes, coaches, officials, administrators, and sports associations of all sizes, from minor associations to national sports organizations and professional sports environments. We routinely assist with safe sport complaints, investigations, anti-doping, harassment, discrimination, abuse, and governance matters. We also provide representation on general civil litigation matters, including employment and business disputes of all sizes. Durant Barristers founder Aaron Durant also provides mediation and arbitration services to assist in managing disputes in a timely and affordable manner. Durant Barristers has generously offered their best ever discount to fans and supporters of women's hockey. Mention the Rinkside Rundown podcast to, wait for it, receive 15% off all your accounts with Durant Barristers for the duration of your relationship with the firm. To learn more about Durant Barristers, visit www.durantbarristers.com. That's www.durantbarristers.com. Thank you to Durant Barristers for sponsoring this episode.
And now, back to the show.
Yeah, and Vanessa
can we go back
to
Can we go back to the Haley Wickenheiser idolization for a sec? Do you want to show off the tattoo? Just like while we're here?
If she ever sees this, she's gonna get a restraining order from me. But yeah, I have a tattoo.
Oh, look at that.
There you go.
Oh.
It's got 22 on it for Haley Wickenheiser. It's funny, like I've met her. I'm lucky enough to say that I've met her a few times. I've interviewed her a few times. I've hosted like in-person interviews with her in conferences and stuff. And I've never shown her that tattoo because I'm terrified of what she's going to do. So yeah, she may end up getting a restraining order after she sees this.
It was a good run while it lasted, though. So that's good.
Thanks, Haley. Love you.
Yeah.
Badge of honor.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. That's incredible. When did you get that tattoo done?
That's a good question. I want to say 2018-ish. So about 5-6 years ago. But if memory serves. Was it 2019?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank God you know.
Yeah.
I got you.
That's fantastic. So I'm going to throw it back to you, Michaela, as well. When I ask, what are some of your favorite sports memories as you were growing up?
God.
Nagano would obviously be one of those.
Nagano's definitely up there because it was like the catalyst, right? Like it truly did change my life. It's a painful memory, bittersweet a little bit because Canada lost. But I mean, Salt Lake City in 2002 is definitely up there. I remember watching the women play and watching Canada win in America on American soil when everyone was favoring the Americans to win that one. And the, like, you may recall that game, like the reffing was terrible. And Haley Wickenheiser was so fired up after the game. And it was just an absolutely chaotic game that Canada thankfully came out with the gold medal. And I was so excited. I went to school the next day and I was like telling all my friends, Canada won the gold medal. And everyone's like, yeah, but the men, what are you talking about? The hockey game is in a few days, because no one was watching women's hockey, unfortunately. And it's crazy to think now how dominant women's hockey is. It's just nice to see that. But I remember that distinctly being like one of the highlights of my childhood. And similarly, like I always say, like, fandom is often born out of trauma. And the London 2012 semifinals, despite the result, is still like one of my favorite sports memories, because it felt like in a day, Canada went from maybe not knowing much about women's soccer to being a women's soccer country. Like everyone was, we ride at dawn for Christine St. Clair from that day on. And I know that like she was very well known before that, but me, a non-soccer fan, wasn't too familiar with her. And at the end of that day, like I was in love, and I've been a massive soccer fan ever since. Like that was a total game changer moment. And then fast forward, to another favorite memory would be when Canada eventually won gold in Tokyo. I always tell this story. Like, I did not cry on my wedding day, but I sobbed when Canada won gold, like just openly wept by myself in my living room, because I was so happy for Christine Sinclair.
We were
My
also
dogs-
dealing with like extreme sleep deprivation because it was,
Oh my
we were
God.
watching the Olympics. We were watching all of the Olympics in the middle
All
of the
of
night for 2 weeks. And
We were up
we
at
were
4 in the
tired,
morning.
and we're
Yep.
so
Vanessa and I were just
emotional.
texting each other nonstop. I didn't hear from her for like 5 minutes after that game, and I called her because I thought she had died. I was genuinely worried for her well-being.
Yeah.
My dogs still haven't recovered from that tournament. Like my dogs pick up on it. I'm sure many of you know, if you have dogs, they pick up on energy. And my girl dog was like visibly stressed out from me watching that game. Like it was a lot. But yeah, that's definitely up there as one of my favorite memories.
That's incredible. I love that. And it feels like it's so, and we're going to get into this in a moment, but it feels like it's still very vivid in your mind.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that day. My God, it really does feel like yesterday. Like I'll never forget it. It was just, it was so awesome. Cause like, you know, we knew we were nearing the end of Christine Sinclair's career, and we were getting dangerously close to like her never winning a major tournament. And it just meant, like, I remember in that moment thinking like, she did it. Like no one can ever take this away from her. She got a gold medal. And of course, like beating the Americans on the way there was kind of the gold within the gold. That was a lot of fun as well. And yeah, I just like, what a great, the only heartbreaking thing about that whole tournament and that game is that no one got to be there to watch it. Cause it was still obviously like during COVID and there were no fans in the stands. That's the only thing that kind of sucks, but like, what a great memory.
Yeah, well, as a fellow Sinclair, I always, I'm always partial.
Is it any relation?
You know what? I haven't inquired, but I'm just going to assume. Yeah, absolutely. Let's run with that rumor. I'm down. Vanessa,
the best part about having a last name as an athlete, the same last name as a famous athlete, is that you get jerseys without having to pay extra to get them personalized.
It's funny you say that, because I'm like, I've been able to get some jerseys. I'm like, oh, great news. I didn't have to pay for the customization on that one. So that's great news.
There you go. I have Sanchez Blue Jays stuff. We have Sanchez New York Jets stuff.
Yeah.
It's great.
Some are better than others, but yeah, that's right. Vanessa, why don't you share some of your favorite sports memories growing up?
It's so unfortunate that most of my favorite sports memories are around men's sports, or as we like to call them on the show, boy sports. There's women's sports and then boy sports. But a lot of my memories, just because that is what was available to us growing up, was just mostly boy sports. But you know, no shade to boy sports, because I do love them, and that's what got me into watching sports. I mean, oh my God, I have so many, like, I have memories of just like very mundane things. My dad's a big F1 fan, and so I have like very vivid memories of just random Sunday mornings waking up to, you know, to that sound, and Michael Schumacher winning again, and hearing the German anthem and the Italian anthem again every Sunday morning. Like, that just is ingrained in my memory from being a kid. We watched a lot of golf. I remember Mike Weir winning the Masters. That came at a very emotional time for my family. My grandfather was a huge golf fan, and he had passed away a couple of weeks before. And so watching a Canadian win for the first time was like an incredible memory. Watching Fernando Alonso win his championships was so huge. The Miracle at Medina is still, like, to this day, my greatest sports event of all time. This is the Ryder Cup in 2012, when Europe came back from like a huge deficit to win on the Sunday. Just like a lot. It's a random sport to be so obsessed with, but my family is obsessed with golf, and so many of our best memories come around golf. Yeah, I'm trying to think of my others. My God, there's so many that just like, oh my goodness, I can't even think. Michaela, can you think of any stories I've told you about
Well, anything involving Serena or Venus Williams.
Oh my God, yes. I got to see Venus Williams play last year for the first time ever. I saw her play live and like amazing. I was always a Venus fan over Serena. Again, I don't always attach my carriage to the fastest horse, but I love that woman. I love that woman so much. I think because we both had V names and like she was the older sister and I was like, obviously she's the coolest one. And then Serena was just the best, but anything involving them. God, I love those two.
It was a tough couple weeks for our show. Not last year, but the year before, 2022. Sue Bird and Serena Williams retired within days of each other. I'm obsessed with Sue Bird, and Vanessa obviously is our resident tennis expert. And while she did pick Venus, she's still a massive Serena Williams fan. And I think we were in mourning. Like, I think our show was just nothing but like depression for a couple of weeks around that time.
I feel bad for everyone that had to listen to that.
God,
we just waxed poet. I think we had like 2 entire episodes, one devoted to Serena and one to Sue, where we just like took up an entire 20-minute segment.
Yeah, like, it's just some sort of eulogy to them, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But I think that this brings up a really great point in that when it comes to sports, you can remember like exactly where you were, what you were doing. For me, the first one that comes to mind is, the golden goal, Sidney Crosby. There's also, I was a big hockey fan growing up, so that's mostly where my memories come from. But the other big one for me as a Sens fan was when Alfie scored the overtime goal and sent the Sens to the Cup final. Like, I remember where I was. I was on crutches because I just had knee surgery and I was over at a friend's place. I was helping them move, which really meant I was just more supervising than anything else. But I remember who I was with when that happened. And so what do you think makes sports such an impactful thing in people's lives?
Oh, man. That's a good question.
That is a good question. Like, sometimes it's not even the sport itself. Sorry, Michaela, but like,
no, go for it.
Like, my family was talking about it recently. Like, I remember so vividly watching when Saku Koivu came back from his cancer treatment. And like, I don't remember anything about that game. I don't remember a single thing, but I remember the impact that he had as a player on my brother, especially. He wore number 11 because of Saku Koivu. And he used to his name is Zach. He used to call himself Zaku Koivu. And like, it just like, it was so impactful, just like the storyline around it. The sport itself is one thing, but then the storylines and the emotional attachment that you get to players, to coaches, to teams is what makes it like so a part of you.
I agree 100%. Yeah, Michaela, what do you think?
Yeah, that's such a good point. I think it's like the community that you build around it, like whether it's with your family or your friends, like Vanessa talked about her family being a big sports family. Like, that's kind of like a bonding point for them. I know, like with my dad and I growing up, it was the same thing. And you create, it's something that it's a common place that you can have with someone, that allows you to bond with them a lot. And I think that's why sports, people really gravitate towards them. It's also like, we talk about this a lot on the show, but like sports are a microcosm of society, right? And while it is an escapism for a lot of people, there are also a lot of really impactful moments that have happened in sports that have nothing to do with the sport themselves, right? Like Colin Kaepernick kneeling for the anthem and then that kind of trickling out elsewhere. We talk a lot about what the U.S. women's national team has done for equality across the board. And I know a lot of people want to, we'll make the argument of stick to sports, but I actually think it's when we don't just stick to sports in sports that make it so impactful, because you can see literal societal change happen through sports sometimes. And I know that probably makes it a lot more serious than we wanted to, but that's something that's always really grabbed my attention. But also it's just like, it's pure unfiltered drama. it's unscripted drama that you can't get anywhere else. Like the most wild situations that no reality TV show could or soap opera could ever replicate, and you get to watch it. And I think that's why we remember so much of where we were, because Alfie scoring the overtime goal or the golden goal, like that is a moment that we all like leapt out of our seats for, and it brought so many people so much joy, because of a hockey team or because of a silly little game, but like it brings people joy. It's so much fun, and yeah, it can be hard and heartbreaking at times, but I think that it just gives you this unscripted drama that you can't get anywhere else.
And now, a word from our sponsor.
This episode is sponsored by sports nutritionist Melissa Buffunos of MB Performance Nutrition. As a former competitive hockey player turned nutritionist, Melissa's mission is to help the next generation of hockey players optimize their health and diets so they can perform their best on and off the ice. Ready to dominate on the ice? Melissa's new course, The Hockey Nutrition Blueprint, is opening soon. If you're serious about learning how nutrition can impact performance and building actionable nutrition strategies based on your unique needs as an elite hockey player, get on the waitlist today. Learn more and sign up at melissabuffunos.com/course. That's melissabuffunos.com/course. Thank you to Melissa Buffunos for sponsoring this episode.
And now, back to the show.
Yeah.
Unscripted, although sometimes I love a conspiracy theory.
Oh, yes,
and I'm
that's true.
still convinced that sometimes things are scripted, but we won't get into it.
Oh, I feel like you have to now.
Yeah.
I feel like you can't just drop that mic and then walk away from it.
I think it was just very convenient that the Kansas City Chiefs won the Super Bowl again. But anyway,
I think it's also very
We won't
convenient
put
that Pittsburgh got the first overall pick in 2005, but here we are.
Yep, agreed. As
2006. 2006, sorry. 2006.
2005 was Ovechkin, right?
Okay, and then 06 was Crosby, and then because it was the
'cause 05
season
was
started.
the
05,
strike.
06 was the lockout. So 06.
Okay.
Thank you for following along.
There we go. We got there. A little bit of a roadmap, but it was great. It was a great adventure. But I think to your point, like we're seeing that, especially, and we're going to talk about the PWHL in a bit, but we see that, sort of community building behind, yes, women's hockey in general, obviously, but especially with the PWHL, the interactions that people are having, whether it's at a live game, whether it's on social media, the communities there are being built. And it's actually not necessarily about the wins and losses. It's about players. It's about memories. It's about experiences, more so sometimes than, you could go to a game and you end up, the team that you're cheering for loses, but you're still able to connect and relate to fellow fans. And there are friendships that are being built just as a result of the excitement around teams. And I think that's one of the things that I think about when it comes to sports is, like you both have said, it's not necessarily just the product on the ice or product on the field or turf or wherever, but it's actually what's happening in the stands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's so true. Yeah. It's like Michaela and I went to Canada Soccer. The Canadian women's national team played last September in Toronto, and it was an Olympic qualifier against Jamaica, and they won, thank God. But like in our cheering, this woman in front of me was like, she was going in for the hugs and the high fives, and like, I don't know this woman at all, but in that moment we were best friends. Yeah. Like I was gonna pick her up. Yeah. Like that I love that atmosphere. And you see it so much at PWHL games. Like, oh yeah, people are just so excited.
Yeah, I agree. Mm-hmm. I want to turn a little bit. I always like to do at least a little bit of a segment on highlighting the careers of the people I'm getting a chance to chat about. So we're going to do that here. So you both work in communications at the Ottawa Hospital. So that's great. As well as, like I mentioned, you co-host She's Got Game on TSN 1200, which is a fantastic show. I listen regularly, really, really genuinely enjoy it. I want to know, and it sounds like earlier, it sounds like I should throw this to Michaela to learn a little bit more about the origin story behind how She's Got Game started, and then to both of you around what it means to be able to tell the stories of all these, of so many amazing women's athletes.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so it's gonna sound like a long story. I promise it all. It's gonna be like How I Met Your Mother. This does connect, I promise. So to tell the story of She's Got Game, I have to rewind a little bit to when I was in college. Again, follow me, folks. When I was in college, so I went to college for public relations, and they talked a lot. This was like 2012, so like, you know, social media was really blowing up and blogs and stuff were a big thing. And they always told me to, like, you know, start a blog, get your writing samples out there. And I was a huge hockey fan, so I started a hockey blog, and it was crap. Please don't look it up. It was awful. But that led to me getting a writing gig with Silver Seven Sens, which is the SB Nation website that covers the Sens. So I moved back to Ottawa. I got the gig with them, and I wrote for them on the side while I was doing my regular job in communications. And I did that for a couple of years. And then Ian Mendez started a show on TSN 1200 called Advanced Chats, where he brought on bloggers to talk about hockey. He wanted to get that perspective. Ian's always been very forward thinking. This was not something a lot of people were doing. And so he wanted to kind of bring this different perspective into the radio. And he had me on a couple of times, and they liked me, apparently. He had myself and a woman named Shyla Anwar on, I think at least once. And they were basically like, you know, we really like you guys and we want to get you on the air more. So they gave us a show called That's What She Said, which we had on TSN 1200 from, I think, 2016 to 2020. When the pandemic hit, a lot of those kind of 1 hour shows per week got canceled. So unfortunately, That's What She Said was one of them. But we were on the air for about 4 years. And then the pandemic hit. I was off the air for a solid year, did some filling in here and there, but nothing really consistent. And then, you know, over the years, I had covered the CWHL a little bit through my work with TSN. And Robin Flynn in Montreal had pitched the idea of a show dedicated to women's sports. And they were looking for a co-host, so they reached out to me to see if I would co-host. And Robin and I had kind of crossed paths in covering the CWHL. So I was like, yeah, that sounds great. And so that's how She's Got Game got started. We did that for about a year, and then Robin went on maternity leave, and I was looking for a co-host. And Vanessa and I have been friends and worked together for years. And she had worked at The Gist, and I knew she had sports background experience. So I asked her if she wanted to join me for a year as my co-host. And we have been co-hosts ever since. Robin ended up not coming back. And Vanessa ended up being the full-time co-host of She's Got Game. And I again, like, it was great. It was so amazing working with Robin, and like, she really deserves all the credit for starting the show. This was her brainchild. And Vanessa and I were really excited that we got to continue working together, because I think we do have this really great chemistry that is hard to replicate. So that's kind of how we got where we are now. I promise it had a point.
Yeah, no, it all connected, so it was great.
Yes.
Michaela's good at doing a full circle story. I usually go on all the tangents. She brings me back. But I genuinely thought I was signing up for like a couple of weeks. I thought she needed just like someone to fill in for a few weeks, just like Robin was going to pop out a kid and then be back. I don't know how that works. And then a few weeks went by, and I was like getting more used to it. I'd never done radio before. But Michaela obviously was like an old pro. And it really was just after I got over that, you know, that like initial nervousness, it was just like talking to her about sports like we do every day. We see each other every single day, during the week, and also usually on weekends too. Like we just talk about sports all the time, and we hang out, and it just translated really well into radio, I think. So,
and I will say, Vanessa's giving herself not enough credit, because she picked up radio real fast, and it is not easy. A lot of people, whether it's podcasts or radio, they don't get how hard it is. And Vanessa hit the ground running, man. Like, she immediately, it was great. So do not sell yourself short, ma'am.
Stop it. I'm blushing.
No, but it shines through from episode 1 all the way up until right now, right? Like, the two of you absolutely, clearly throughout even just this episode, showcase your chemistry with one another and how comfortable you are, like bouncing off of one another and correcting each other and knowing the other person's evidently their lives and all that sort of stuff. Like that's what this is all about, right? So it shines through. I promise you. Vanessa, just to kind of ask, like, what was it like those, as someone who's now just more recently getting into podcasting and this sort of thing, what was it like for you the first little bit of when it came to joining the show and going on radio? How did it feel?
Terrifying. I will say this now because I've been doing it for 2 years. I hated it. I had nerves for like a solid month. The Thursday, because we record on Thursdays, and like the entire day, and I shouldn't even say this either because like I work with Michaela during the day too, but like I would barely get any work done at my day job because all I could think of was like, oh my God, I have to go on the radio now and talk about sports. And I like imposter syndrome is a real thing. I still feel it, but I really, really felt it in the beginning because I didn't feel like I deserved to be on there at all. Like, who am I just coming on the radio talking about sports? I'm literally nobody. And so it was a lot of like fighting off imposter syndrome or just pretending it didn't exist. And like, I can sit and I can watch an entire game and know everything that happened. And then you put a microphone in front of me and I'm like, who won? My brain would just go numb. And it was like that for a while. But I took notes from Michaela. I took notes and wrote notes and just, tried to prepare myself as much ahead of time. Now I actually find that having notes deters me from this like free-flowing conversation and us just like riffing off of each other. So I try not to write as many notes anymore just because I do feel more comfortable. But in those beginning days, I would like read verbatim from my paper because I was so nervous about getting facts wrong. That's another thing. Sometimes you just say stuff wrong and that's okay.
Sometimes you're wrong.
It
happens.
That's incredible advice. Again, as someone who's more like very new to this space, I found myself as I've kind of progressed through podcasting, I've done a number of interviews, and the first couple of interviews I've done, like, I don't know what I'm doing at all. Like I know that I have to ask questions, but I'm trying to create like engaging, fun dialogue. And like, I don't know what I'm doing. So but I found myself reading like the questions verbatim and sticking to those questions and not really going off script. And the more you do it, it just becomes natural where you're like, you know what, the script becomes less your foundation and more just kind of like or like the questions, not necessarily the script, but it becomes more of like a backup. So you're like, oh, I don't know what to ask next, or maybe the interview isn't going quite where I was expecting it to go. Let's now refer back to the questions that I had rather than using those questions. Because then it's just like you said, it's just like free flowing. Let's have fun. Like the more organic you can make it, the better the answers, the more fun people have just in the interview. But obviously it's about the listeners as well too, right? And they engage more with just like, let's just hang out. Like it's just about hanging out, right? And if you view it in that regard, I'm still nervous every time I do these things. But it becomes a little bit easier when I'm thinking about it like just kind of a hangout.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We just love to hang out.
Yeah,
exactly. Like it's so true. The best interviews, the best podcasts, it feels like a conversation. And I think my boss at TSN, JR, John Rodenberg, he gave me really good advice early on. He said like the best training is reps. Like the more you do it, the better you get. It does take time. And the best thing you can do is just keep doing it and not be too hard on yourself. Like Vanessa and I kind of alluded to, like, yeah, you're going to be wrong sometimes. It's going to happen. Like, don't dwell on it. Just kind of move on, correct yourself wherever you can. Obviously be prepped, but like, it's you're going to make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. The best kind of the best practice is just doing it. And I think, again, Vanessa, your nervousness never showed it right away. Like you honestly sounded great, but like, you've obviously grown a lot being on the air. I know like all of us have. It's something that comes with experience, and the best thing you can do is just do more of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. Now I realize that we skipped over like a fairly significant part of your lives, which is, something called post-secondary. So as someone who dropped out, this was less significant for me, but very significant for the both of you. Michaela, you're a graduate of Humber College and Brock University. Vanessa, you're a graduate of Carleton. First off,
Go Ravens.
Yep, there you go. I actually know the guy who designed the logo, which is wild.
No way.
He says it. I still don't believe him. He's told me that for years now. I still don't believe him. But, I'll give him a shout out anyways. But first of all, what went into your decision to choose that school, whether it was college or university? Vanessa, why don't you go first?
I wanted to not spend too much money and stay home with my parents. And so that really was, I took a couple of years off after high school. I wanted to make sure that I was going into something that I actually wanted to do. I didn't want to waste money. So I took a couple of years off. I actually started working at the Ottawa Hospital right out of high school in like a student job, basically like a casual position. And then I did apply to other schools when I was ready to go to university, but Carleton was it was down the street. It was very close. My cousin went there, and I don't know, it seemed like a good option, especially I was in communications. When I first started going, I did a bit of a Van Wilder thing. It took me 7 years to graduate, but that's because I started full time, and then I was like, oh, I really like it here. I'm having fun. So I bumped down to part-time, worked throughout, and then just dragged it out for 7 years. And my parents also said, as long as I'm in school, I could live at home for free. And I was like, I'll take you up on that. And
Make you eat your words on that one.
I found a loophole. But Carleton is just like, I know everyone's heard it, where the K stands for quality. Like, everyone gives it a bad rap. I loved my time at university. I loved Carleton. The campus is, it's, there's old and dated bits to it, but the fact that it is like so compact in one section, I love that about it. Everything was nice and close. I also worked in the athletics department. I worked at a student job. I worked at the front desk of athletics, and then I eventually worked full time while I was still in school as a marketing coordinator. And I just I felt so at home in the athletics department. It really was it was a matter of convenience to go to Carleton, but the best choice because I loved it so much. I'm a very proud Raven.
No one could tell. So, Michaela, what about you?
Yeah, I wish I had like a really good story about why I chose Brock, but I'm going to be 100% honest. I knew I wanted to take communications. It was either communications or psychology. I ended up with majoring in communications with a minor in psychology. And I always thought I was going to go to Carleton. I got into Carleton. But I went to a Brock meeting just like on a whim, and whoever the woman was making this presentation should get a raise because she sold it like nobody's business. And I walked in that room knowing nothing about Brock, and I walked out going, I'm going to Brock. And then I just went to Brock. Like, it was purely a gut feeling. I knew nothing about St. Catharines, Ontario. I knew nothing about really like the school aside from the presentation I had just been given. I knew they had a good communications program. It was a gut thing. And I went there. I loved it. Again, you don't hear people say this very often, but I loved living in St. Catharines. I loved that area. I met some very good friends there who I still have in my life now. And yeah, like I had a blast. And Humber was a little more of a conscious choice because when I was I was in my fourth year, like about to graduate from Brock. And I think a lot of university students go through this depending on your major, obviously, but it becomes very apparent to you that you have zero practical work experience. And I apologize, my dogs are barking. But it becomes apparent to you that you have zero practical experience when you leave university. Like, I can write you a 15-page paper on Marshall McLuhan and his theories of communications, but I do not know how to function in a professional environment. So I started to think of, they have graduate certificate programs through college. So you have to have a university degree to get in. It's like a 1-year kind of intensive course, and they teach you kind of everything you need to know about whatever field it is, like from a practical standpoint. And so I decided I wanted to go into public relations. It just kind of seemed like a cool fit. I wanted to work in media. Humber was known for their PR program. So I applied, I got in, thank God. And I will say, like, my time at Humber was only 8 months, but it's probably one of my favorite times of my life. And I met my best friend there. I met tons of friends who I'm still very close with now. Got such great experience, ended up with an internship at CHIO here in Ottawa that led to my career in healthcare. And yeah, I think I learned more in 8 months than I have in any other time of my life at Humber. So I really, really enjoyed it.
Good. I'm glad, man. Now I feel like I shouldn't have dropped out so quickly. Don't regret that though. So, I mean, you both have shared some of, the experiences that you've had, and obviously, clearly, those experiences help lead you to where you are now, which is, you're killing it. Everything you're doing is absolutely incredible. Who were some of those maybe professors or mentors who really helped impact you during your time in university or in college, and really helped encourage you along? I'll just throw it out there. Whoever wants to go first can go first.
Oh man, that's a really good question. I do right off the. Oh, sorry, Vanessa.
No, you go first.
Okay, because I do have one. I had a writing professor at Humber. Her name was Kayleen Morgan, who. Well, I think she was the program director as well. And she was just an amazing teacher. I learned so much from her, but she was really good. She would take 20 minutes at the beginning of every writing class and just give us advice on working in public relations. Because the one thing about college courses is you're being taught by industry professionals. So all of my professors were people who worked in public relations or marketing for their entire careers. And we're now kind of in the later stages of their career, and we're teaching. And so Kayleen was a public relations professional, and she would just give us career advice, like rapid fire almost at the beginning of every class. And she was some of the best advice I ever got was in those little conversations in those sessions. And she was also very real. I remember someone asked the online system that we used for submitting papers and stuff was going to be going under maintenance from 9 p.m. on Saturday to 9 a.m. on Sunday. And this class was full of go-getters. So they were like, what are we going to do? Even though it's overnight on a Saturday, calm down. And she was like, oh, I have a solution. Go clubbing. It's Saturday.
Oh, good answer.
Yeah, exactly. She was so great. And I still, when I go to Toronto every now and then, I'll get together with her for coffee. And I just admire her so much. So yeah, she was probably one of my most influential professors.
As she should be. Absolutely. Vanessa, what are you thinking?
Mine's a bit of a downer, actually. I had a professor. I had him for 2 classes in university. His name was John Rainford, and he taught emergency communications. I took one class with him, and I didn't really know what to expect from this class. It was one of the ones, you got to fill up a certain amount, and so I took it on a whim, and I loved it so much that I took another class with him. He was an incredible human being. He was so smart, but so easy to listen to and to learn from and to talk to. He had worked with the WHO. He had worked on the Hill, and he just had a ton of experience. And then when the pandemic hit, we were working in healthcare. I was working in healthcare at the Ottawa Hospital. And a lot of what I learned in his class was all of a sudden very pertinent to what I was doing every day. And I actually, a few months into the pandemic, I went to write him an email because I wanted to thank him for everything he had done for me. I really think he was very inspirational in me choosing to stick with healthcare communications. And unfortunately, he had passed away the year before. He had a heart attack. He was quite young. He was in his 40s. And so he passed away before the pandemic. But he is someone that like will stick with me forever. He was an incredible professor.
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a good one though. Sometimes it's like, you wish that you had that opportunity to circle back and be like, hey, listen, like you did so much for me as a person.
Yes.
And it sucks when you're not able to do that. But I know that he knows just the impact he made on your life. Absolutely.
For sure. And I know I'm not the only one. Like he was one of those professors that I know he stuck with everyone who took his class. Yeah. Yeah. He was a great guy.
And now, a word from our sponsor.
I would like to take a moment to talk about our sponsor, DraftKings Sportsbook. Bet the action on the ice with DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the app now and use code THPN. New customers can get $150 instantly in bonus bets for betting just $5 on hockey. That's code THPN only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. The crown is yours. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. Please play responsibly. See dkng.com/hockey for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gambling resources. NHL and the NHL Shield are registered trademarks of the National Hockey League. Copyright NHL 2023, all rights reserved.
And now, back to the show.
Michaela, you had kind of mentioned this earlier, but I want to know, did you both know that like media and this life was something you wanted?
Oh man. It's funny. Like, I think there was a point when I went into communications, like, I think I kind of wanted to go into, in some way, journalism, but I realized, I was in university from 2007 to 2011 and then college in 2012. Like, that was a really big time of like transition in the media space. And I think I kind of learned that journalism specifically may not be for me, just because I wasn't sure of where the industry was going, but I knew I wanted to work in media in some capacity. So like, it's funny, I work on the media relations side in my regular job. So I'm on kind of like one side of the fence there. And then I'm on the media side in my TSN job. So I'm on the other side of the fence, which has given me this very interesting perspective of like, when I'm doing media relations, I know what the journalists are looking for. And when I'm doing the media side of things, I know what the PR people need to hear from me in order for me to get what I want. So it has given me this like both sides of the coin, but I don't know that I ever expected. I definitely I knew I wanted to, I always dreamed of being in the radio. Like I grew up with radio. So like it was a really big thing for me. I don't think I ever would have expected to actually be on the radio on a regular basis. So I'm very, very grateful for that every day, especially, just given the landscape of media and how much it's changing. It's not lost on me how lucky we are to do this. So yeah, I don't know that I ever expected it, but I'm happy that we got here.
Me too. I'm happy you got here.
Yeah,
brought me along with you.
So am I, and so many other people as well. So absolutely, yes, absolutely. Vanessa, what are your thoughts?
I never expected it, for sure. I don't think I really had much intention in ever being in the public facing part of communications or sports at all. I do love writing, and I think writing about sports has been something that I've done for a long time. I didn't start quite in university like Michaela did with her blog, but in 2019 I started writing for The Gist, which is a sports media company. The whole shtick was by women for women, but talked about all kinds of sports in that. They were a tiny company when I first started with them. I think I was their second or third employee. It was like the three founders. Michaela actually she witnessed my contract. Do you remember that? I was like, I'd been working at the hospital for like a couple of months, and then I had been reading this newsletter. It was an email newsletter from the Gist, and one of my friends was like, you should apply for it. And I was like, okay. So I applied for it. I had to write 2 like sample newsletters, and then I drove to Toronto for a day to interview with them, and they offered me the job. It was a part-time writing gig, but I came home, and then I was in the hospital in the office one day, and I was like, I need someone to witness me signing this contract, and so you signed it for me, Michaela. And
Did
I
I
sent it off
really?
to them. Yeah, it was very
I don't remember that at all. That's hilarious.
because I remember you being like, yo, I read this, and I was like, I'm gonna write it. Yeah.
I remember when I remember vividly I thought you just told me you wrote for them. I've apparently blocked this out in my mind, but I remember you being like, "Oh yeah, I write for the Gist now." And I was like, "Oh my God, I read the Gist every week." And I had met with one of the founders.
That's right.
Like I think we had her on at the time. That's what she said. And I had met with her for coffee, and then we had her on the show. So like, yeah, it was a like crazy small world.
Yeah, very small. And so so I wrote for them for a couple of years, and I loved writing for the Gist. And I left to do hospital more full time, and I'm still sad that I don't write as much as I would like to about sports, or at all really, but like getting to talk about it is just as cool. I feel like I am a better communicator through the written word. I talk bad sometimes, and things don't come out the right way or the way I intend them or want them to, but writing, just rest assured, I'm a much better writer than I am a speaker. I should have prefaced this whole thing with that.
It's endearing. It's endearing. Yeah. I want to go back to She's Got Game for a moment, okay? I want to know, speaking specifically about your show, who were some of your most memorable guests?
Christine Sinclair.
Christine Sinclair.
Yeah, wow, really playing to the host on this one.
Yeah, your sister, Christine Sinclair. We've been so lucky. We've had a lot of really great guests on. Like in terms of like the Mount Rushmore of women's sports, if you will, like we've had Christine Sinclair on, we've had Marie-Philip Poulin, Haley Wickenheiser, Jana Hefford, Carolyn Willett, some Diana Matheson, some of the biggest names in like historically in women's sports, which I think we're so lucky, and that it's so crazy to me that we've got to interview these folks. And also we've had like some interviews that just with amazing people who I know it's recency bias, but we interviewed Lexi Agia about a week ago, and like I'm still reeling from that interview. It was one of the best interviews I've ever done. She was so much fun, and she was so like kind and exciting to talk to. Like she had such great energy and passion, and like I haven't stopped thinking about that interview since we did it. And we've had so many interviews like that with folks who with athletes who we maybe just were getting to know at the time and ended up being just fantastic interviews. So yeah, those are some of the ones that stand out to me, but Vanessa, you probably have more.
The non-athletes are cool too. Like I love talking to athletes. We've had some really great ones. We smiled that whole interview. And then afterwards you're just sitting there like idiots, like, oh my God, she's amazing. But we've gotten the opportunity to speak to like people who are involved in sports, but not playing the sport. Lindsay Darkangelo has come on a few times. She covers women's basketball, and just like she knows so much. It's why you can ask her anything, throw anything at her, and she's got an answer for it. She's been so great. We talked to the U.S. ambassador to Canada, David L. Cohen, was on our show like a month ago, and invited us very kindly to the they did a PWHL celebration at the embassy, or not at the embassy, sorry, at his home at the ambassador's house. And so we're kind of friends with him now, we've decided. He's pretty cool. But he was so great to talk to, and like learning about all of the things that he did in the the pursuit of this professional women's team or professional women's league, and he advised the U.S. women's national team, soccer team, on their fight for equal pay. Like, the ways that he is involved in women's sports is really cool. So yeah, we just get to talk to a lot of really cool people, and now we're on this podcast. This is pretty awesome.
Yes, absolutely. Chris, you're up there.
You are.
It is so cool.
That's absolutely, for the rest of my life, that will be a moment I will never forget. You saying that, putting me in that same conversation is absolutely incredible. Thank you. Not true though. I want to know, we kind of, and I believe, Michaela, you kind of alluded to this earlier. Obviously the media landscape has changed, right? And it continues to change. We saw some recent changes as well. Was it the beginning of this week? Something like that. Where do you both see people and how they consume things like sports and sports conversation? Do you think it's going to be a lot more of these sorts of things where it's podcasts? Do you see live radio still finding a place somewhere? Do you also, there's in the States, they have the three major media companies coming together, bundling their services. So there's only one app that you need where you can consume all of these different sports, but not so much the conversation behind them. Where do you think sports conversation is in the next, let's look at that crystal ball, and in the next 5 or 10 years, where do you think things are going to be?
Oh man, that's a really good question. I think it is shifting. Like, obviously, it's not news to anybody that things are shifting online. Things are shifting. Podcasts are exploding, and are becoming. I think the podcast or radio aside, it's like people want to consume content at their leisure, like when they choose to. So you want it on your phone so that you can listen to it when you're going for a walk or when you're driving or when you're doing whatever. I think that the consumer being a little more in control of when and how they listen is where things have started to shift, and I think where things are going. There is still, and maybe I'm biased because we are still on the radio in addition to being on podcast apps, I should say. But there are still plenty of people who do listen to the radio on a regular basis. Like, I grew up in a small town in the Ottawa Valley. I know that there are thousands of people in that area who will hold on to radio until you pry it from their cold dead hands. Like, there's just a lot of people who do like to consume traditional media, and they're still definitely consuming it. And there's still, a huge part of the audience for it. I think it's just the younger generation is used to being in a little more control of when you listen to things, right? Whether it's TV, movies, or sports content, it's like you stream movies, you get to watch them whenever you want, or shows or whatever. Back in my day, you had to wait till Wednesday at 8 p.m. to watch Gilmore Girls, and now you can watch it whenever you want. So I think we're seeing that divide, but generational divide in media. So I do see it shifting that way, but yeah, it's just like the crystal ball is tough because, like, it's hard to know, when that full shift is going to happen. It feels like we're kind of caught in the middle right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. It's a weird place to be in right now, in the middle. I think of, like, in terms of like interactive content, we are still, but we're really huge users of Twitter back when it was more of a safe space. And that was where I consumed a lot of my news and got a lot of content from Twitter. And now it's kind of a hellhole. Can I say that on podcast?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, good. Yeah. It's kind of a hellhole. We're still there. We're still very active on it, but it doesn't feel like a great space to be in anymore. And so, in terms of social media for sports content, I don't know what's next. I do use TikTok. I love TikTok. I love it, for the laughs and the jokes. But I do find that I'm finding a lot more sports stuff on there as well. And maybe it's just how the algorithms work. I don't understand science, but I'm kind of liking what I'm getting from TikTok right now. And yeah, from a social media perspective, I think that's the current spot to be for sports.
Yeah, and I that's a good point. And I think that when it comes to social media, it's much more, as you kind of alluded to, before you could go on there, it was a safe space. You could just like have some fun. But now, like, you really have to be conscious of how you're curating that experience. And if you're not careful, you end up in that hellhole you've mentioned. And I think TikTok is a great example. I think of right now it's all about quick content consumption. Again, like you said, Michaela, like when it's on their terms, no longer on your terms. And I think that's where, as much as I'm someone, because I'm old, I like my radio. So I still listen to the radio, and I still listen to it regularly. And it's just like, you put it on and you can just like, it's that same time every day. It's like a part of your routine. But for a lot of people, that's just not what it's about anymore. It's about like, hey, I'm going to wake up when I wake up, and I will still want to have the content that I want. And so that's why I think talking about this, especially as someone who's starting a podcast, is that, what does the future of this industry look like? And how do you kind of navigate that in order to be able to set yourself up and to be able to continue? I think, especially for you folks as really important individuals in the women's sports conversation, to be able to set yourselves up for sustained, I was going to say success, obviously success, yes, but to be able to sustain that long term so that you can continue telling the stories of all of these incredible, female athletes around the world. And that's why I think this conversation is something that's super important.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a interesting time. Like we're kind of caught. I'm the same way. I love radio. I grew up with radio, and like whether it's music or talk radio, it is still like something I listen to. And I realize that I'm a millennial, so I'm considered old now. But like it's hard to let go of that. It's also funny the way that things come back. So it's we'll talk about what's to come and what the future holds, and like. Vinyl records are a huge thing now, that I think if you had told someone 20 years ago that vinyl was going to come back, they would have been like, what, you're crazy. Cassette tapes are coming back apparently with Gen Z now.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I don't know how I feel with that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I should have held on to my collection. Damn it.
Yeah, you and me both.
So like, it's funny how like technology sometimes circles back and things become vintage and cool. So like, you never know where it's going to go. I'm not necessarily saying it's, that's going to happen with radio, but it's hard to predict.
Fair enough. Absolutely. I agree. And I just want to say before I continue, once again, how much I appreciate the two of you coming on, hanging out with me. This conversation has already been great. We're like halfway through, and I wish I could talk to you for 3 more hours. This has been fantastic. So once again, just thank you so much for taking time out of your day to hang out and just chat. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having us. We really mean it. We're no big deal, honestly. And it's really cool that you even wanted to have us here. And it's always great to talk to people who love women's sports and women's hockey as much as we do. So we're very happy to be here.
Yeah, we'll talk later about doing this more often. I want to know, we've talked about, obviously the media landscape is changing, which can be really discouraging for a lot of people who like just feel like this is something that they like, when in your heart you're meant to do something, and whether that's radio, whether that's podcasting, whether that's writing, whether that's whatever, this can be really discouraging. When we see all of the changes, all these big names that you're so used to seeing in this space are no longer in this space, hopefully just temporarily, but regardless, no longer in this space. What advice would you provide aspiring writers or media, content creators that would help them to feel that this isn't necessarily the end, that there is still a future for them?
Oh, man.
Oh, I'm the last person who should be giving advice.
Which means you're the first person who should, because the last time you said that, you provided a great answer. So,
oh, no.
Yeah, you set the bar. This is your own fault.
Well, I don't know if anyone should take this too much to heart, but I think a big part of being successful is just like being yourself. I know that sounds so cheesy, but Michaela and I, when we hang out and there just happens to be microphones in front of us, like we are being our most genuine selves. We're minus, I do swear a little bit more in real life than I do on the radio. But other than that, like what you hear is who we are. And I think that helps you be successful. Being comfortable to be yourself is not always a super easy thing, but listeners and content, audiences appreciate that. They can see through veneers that are put up, and if you're yourself and you're very authentically yourself, and the fun that you're having usually shines through. And I hope that is what people hear when they listen to Michaela and I, because we're always having a good time. And I think that's why they've let us be on the radio for this long, because they see that we're just being ourselves and having fun.
Great advice. Yeah.
That's really solid. No, I completely echo everything Vanessa said. I think in terms of like young people kind of trying to get into the media space, I do think it's as tumultuous as it is right now, and as difficult as the media landscape is to predict. I think it's also never provided more opportunity for younger people, because it's never been easier to go and showcase your work and practice your work in a public space. Like if you wanted to do that 20, 30 years ago, you know, a lot of people got jobs behind the scenes in radio stations, and then it was like 5-10 years before they even got to see a mic. But nowadays you can just start a podcast, you can start a YouTube channel, you can start a blog, and like you're gonna be bad, like we all are when we start, but you're bad in a space where no one can see you in the early days, and you can practice and you can build an audience over time, and as you get better, your audience grows with you, and then you've got this portfolio of work to showcase that's all accessible online. Like the platforms are there for you to control as a young professional, which I think just provides so much opportunity. And at the same time, you know, like, it can be really daunting to look at this media space and wonder where your career is going. But I am hopeful. Maybe I'm too optimistic, but I am hopeful that we will land somewhere in a sustainable media space, because there has to be a space for news and sports media and all different kinds of media. There has to be a space for it, right? We need information sharing. That's kind of what our society is based on. And I am hopeful that we'll find a way that a sustainable model at some point for this. So I think just, you know, do your best to showcase your work, build your platforms, and use the opportunities and the tools that are available to you that are really more plentiful than they ever have been.
Yeah, it's so accessible now.
To
just like TikTok. You go on TikTok and it's exactly that. Just like it's a lot of kids or not so young kids, like just trying it. And like you said before, Michaela, like reps. Just keep doing it over and over, and you will get better at it. And there you
go. Yeah, well, I can now for sure. I'm very inspired by what you two have said in regards to, it may seem bleak right now, but that doesn't mean it needs to be bleak for any length of time, right? It's about creating content that's authentic, genuine. And when you're able to showcase your passion, when you're able, hopefully, to be some sort of knowledgeable about the topic, obviously that helps. But you have great chemistry with your partner on the show, like you two have. It comes through, and people genuinely enjoy that and want to consume that more. And so maybe that's just all it is. Maybe it is just podcasting, and that's okay. Or maybe it's podcasting. Maybe it's YouTube. Maybe it's a bunch of TikTok stuff. Maybe it's some new platform that I'll never understand as well at some point as well. So, but I know truly I do feel inspired by what you both have shared. So thank you so much for that. We're starting to see a lot more female-led broadcasting teams. What are your, what does it mean to you? Obviously, first of all, what does it mean to you to start seeing more of female-led broadcasting teams, just like, whether it's on radio, like the two of you, or whether it's on TV with especially the PWHL? Like, what does that mean to actually see, someone like yourself finally on TV, well deserved?
I mean, it means everything. Like it's the same as the sport itself. Like, and I know it sounds so cheesy, but it really is true. Like, if you can't see it, you can't be it. And if you don't see people who you relate to doing things, then you never see yourself doing that. So whether it's watching like Haley Wickenheiser play hockey and realizing that women can play hockey as adults, or watching Jennifer Hedger on TSN, realizing that that's a career opportunity as well. Like, it's just the more exposure and the more diversity of all kinds that we have in media, the more people can see themselves reflected back and know that, whether it's something they aspire to or just to feel more relatable to them, right? Like, it's so important, and it's always meant a lot to me growing up. Like, I say Jennifer Hedger because like I remember when I was younger watching her and just aspiring to her. She's like, she and Kate Burness are like my media idols, and watching them and seeing someone who you relate to, I think it means everything. And I think it's great that we're seeing more of it, whether it's men's sports or boy sports or women's sports. Like, it's so important to have that diversity, whether it's gender diversity, racial diversity. Like, it's really important, I think, in media to have as much diversity as possible, so that, you're growing your audience at the end of the day. And also you're making your audience feel more welcome and safer in this space. So I think it's so important.
Yeah, I agree. Jennifer Hedger actually recorded the intro for our show. So when you listen in, she says she's got game with Michaela Schreiter and Vanessa Sanchez. And the first time I heard that, I recorded it. I took a Snapchat and I sent it to everybody I knew. And I was like, this is the coolest thing that has ever happened to me, because she was one of the first that we got to see on TV. And, a lot of successful female broadcasters and media personalities that you see now have come on the backs of these successful women that came before us, like Jennifer Hedger. So very grateful to the ones who came before, and super proud of the ones that are out there now.
I'll never get over the fact that Jennifer Hedger said my name.
Oh my God, it's so cool.
Like, it's so cool.
Yeah, I can't imagine what that moment must have been like, where like it actually happened and you're like, I'm in a dream. This isn't real. This isn't real. Is this real? Somebody pinch me, because I'm sure this isn't real.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, let's I think this is a perfect segue into, the PWHL. This is a hockey themed podcast. So let's talk a little bit about the PWHL, and then we'll get to our last segment, which is a little bit of a game. And then, I'll let you two go.
Sounds good.
Okay. I mean, we could spend all day here. That's totally fine with us too.
Totally fine with me. Absolutely. So talking about the PWHL, just more broadly, what are some of your, we'll get more specific in a moment, but what are some of your initial impressions of the league as a whole?
Go for it.
Vanessa, you want to go first with me?
No, you go first.
Oh my God, I love it. I mean, like, it's just, I'll never get over the fact that we have professional women's hockey to watch every day now. It's so, and like, I followed the CWHL and the PHF very closely, and I don't want to take anything away from those leagues that came before it, that really we can't talk about the PWHL without talking about those leagues. But how accessible it is, how readily available it is in broadcasts. Like, we never saw that before. Unfortunately, there just wasn't the marketing resources and investment put into previous leagues that there should have been. But the fact that we get to watch like the best female hockey players in the world on TV or in an arena on a regular basis, like, that is so cool to me. Like, if you had told me when I was 10 years old this was going to happen, I wouldn't have believed you. And you
would have tried harder.
I would have tried so much harder. I would have been such a better hockey player than I am. But like, Vanessa and I go to all the Ottawa games, and I'm never not amazed by not just the crowd, but like the individual people I see in the crowd, whether it's like parents there with their kids, young boys or girls, or a group of hockey, a young girls hockey team, or like a couple of dudes out to watch hockey,
that's my favorite.
Oh, just like a couple of dudes that warms my heart. Yeah. Or what really gets me is when I see a group of older women there who I know have been waiting just as much or just as long, if not longer than I have for this, and how I know how much it means to them. So just in general, like I'll never get over how cool this is. And I'm just so happy the league is here and we finally get to watch these amazing athletes play.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree.
Amen
Vanessa,
to that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's been done the right way, and that has led to its success. And I'm really happy that it's rolled out the way that it has. Michaela and I have been asked on multiple occasions if we're surprised at all by the success of this league, and nothing about this is shocking. Like, this is the product is there. It's always been there, but now that it's being marketed so well, it is incredibly successful. And it, like Michaela said, just so happy that we get to see this. We get to witness this, to experience it. You know, once a week we go to the rink and get to watch professional women's hockey. It's incredible. It's so much fun. The games are electric, even though I've yet to be because I am the curse, I've yet to see the thunderclap at the end of a game. I've yet to see a home win for Ottawa, but it's fine. We're going to get there one day. Maybe this weekend, we'll see.
This weekend.
But yeah, I'm so happy. And I'm so happy for the players. Like, I don't know them, any of them personally, but I have parasocial relationships with all of them. And I'm so happy that they get to have a league to play in. It's so great.
Yeah, and I think, you know, as someone I'm lucky enough to have been able to connect with, whether it's PWHL players or players playing in Europe, and they all say the same thing, right? That they're incredibly excited and happy that the league is being received as well as it is, but they're not surprised because they're at games, they're playing in these games all the time. They see the fans, whether it's a smaller stadium or rink or a larger one, they're seeing the fans. They've seen the fans turn up throughout their entire career. So while they're happy, and they should be, they're not surprised. And that's why, you know, I do ask that question, because I think it's important to be able to sit back and reflect on, you know, what does this moment mean? And for a lot of people, they didn't know how good women's hockey was. And especially with women's hockey, you know, the physicality aspect of it, you know, just how skilled these players are. And a lot of them, you know, it's not just the big names that you're used to seeing. It's also those, you know, those role players, those maybe the backup goaltenders, you know, all of those other people as well, that just make this sport so incredible to watch. And it's one of the things that when you see a game, whether it's live, you're in person, or you're watching it on TV, you watch one game and tell me you're not hooked. Tell me and convince me you're not hooked, because you will be.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. We talked about Lexi Gia before. Like, her personality is so incredible. Yeah. And that never would have been able, we would have never known that as a society if not for this professional women's league. But even, like, you know, I am convinced she will play for Team Canada, the senior women's team, at some point in her career. And it doesn't allow for the same level of individuality and personality when you're playing for a national team, but we're able to see it in the PWHL. Like, we have been given the gift of Lexi.
Yeah, yes, the gift of Lexi.
Write that on a T-shirt. That'll
yeah. She has a merch line.
Yeah, we just gave her a great idea. But I think that's also a great point, is that, you know, we're used to, especially when we're talking about hockey, we're used to the NHL, which is so cliched. Like, it's like you talk to someone, they don't want to necessarily, not all of them, there are exceptions, but they've been asked the same questions a million times. They have those cliched, oh, you know, we got to play a full 60 minutes. You know, we got to chip the puck in. But then you get a chance to talk to a player like a Gia, or, you know, Amanda Boulier, who plays for PWHL Ottawa, is an incredible interview. She's so much fun to talk to. Like, they're just so, it would be silly to say that they're just so excited to be able to talk about themselves and the teams or whatever, but they're being so authentic, and they're just being themselves, and they're just celebrating this incredible league. So I love that. That's absolutely a great point. Their personalities have already shone through in droves, if I may.
Yeah. And it's so much fun. Like, the walk-ins, the pre-game fits, like all of that stuff. I'll still never get over the 3 stars at the end of every game and how each team doesn't show the picture of a player from the other team. Like this stuff is hilarious. And sports are supposed to be fun. And you're right. Like with all due respect to the NHL, it can be really dry sometimes from a personality standpoint. And you don't get that with the PWHL. There's so much personality and they're having fun and they're encouraged to share their personalities and be themselves. That video of Emily Clark and Lexi Agia this week, like it broke PWHL Ottawa fans. Like they lost their minds.
Yeah.
Because it was funny and it was amazing to see these like 2 adorable players who obviously get along really well, like have this really cool moment. And like, you just don't see that in other sports. And it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Emma Maltese as well. If you're going to follow anyone on TikTok, let it be her. She's a riot.
Oh my God.
Yeah. It's gold. Every time it's gold. It's gold.
Every time.
So who, we've kind of, we've highlighted some of the great athletes who are great on the ice, but we've spoken specifically about them off of the ice. But who are some of the standouts on the ice for you so far this season?
Oh man.
Vanessa,
you want to go?
Sorry, I sound like such a fangirl now. We can never let Lexi Agia hear this podcast because she's going to.
No, she's going to get a restraining order.
But like to start the season with a point streak and to score in almost every single game so far, I think she's incredible. We do talk very often about our PWHL Ottawa bias on the show. We do air in Toronto and Montreal as well. So I do feel bad every time we wax poetic about PWHL Ottawa. But there are other great players on the other teams too, I guess. Natalie Spooner is doing amazing after like a bit of a slow start. She's doing great over in Toronto. MPP, the best in Montreal. Yeah, it's just all good.
Remember when MPP didn't score for the first 2 goals and like jokingly we were kind of talking like, oh my God, will she ever score again? And now she has 9 points in 9 games and is third in league scoring. Like she heard that for sure.
Yeah.
It's been great to see Natalie Spooner have the success that she's had so far. Returning after having a baby and she's always been a player on Team Canada who I really loved watching. So I was really excited to watch her. And you're right. Like she had a bit of a slow start and now she's just lighting it up. And whether it was the rivalry series or the PWHL, like she's just scoring nonstop right now, which is so much fun. It's looking at Ottawa specifically, because that's where we are and those are the games that we're at. Like, yeah, Lexi Agia has been super fun to watch and just an electric personality, like we said. Daryl Watts as well, like speed demon out there. She's been so much fun. And I'm a huge Emmerich Mashmeyer fan and have been for a long time. And I thought she's looked really good so far. And, Ottawa's had a bit of trouble at times. And I still believe very wholeheartedly that they are better than their record indicates. I do think they'll find a way to get it done in overtime, but Emmerich Mashmeyer has been a lot of fun to watch. And of course, I mean, how can you not love MPP? I cannot get behind cheering against her. I'm sorry, PWHL Ottawa, but I can't do it. Every time we get to watch her, I'm just so grateful that we do. And she's like, to no one's surprise, she's absolutely lived up to expectations. So there's a lot. Grace Zumwickel as well has been amazing for Minnesota. Minnesota in general has just been so good. And she's someone who I don't think I had my eye on coming into the season, and maybe I should have, but she's been really, really fun to watch.
All right. So you kind of tiptoed your way to the line, and I'm going to take us right over that line where, speaking specifically of Ottawa, there's a looming trade deadline. So it's a little over a month away. What are you expecting from the trade deadline? Maybe we can talk as a league, but specifically for Ottawa. And what do you think might need to be tweaked that the GM would Hirschfeld might be looking at?
Don't change anything. Just stay as is.
That is actually funny to say that because that is the resounding response on social media. Don't
really
you dare touch this team. People are tweeting at him and saying, Don't change anything. We'll figure it out. Even if we lose, let's just keep everyone. We love everyone. Please don't change anything.
I think it's like, not to sound like very like I love this team, but I do genuinely love this team. This team has only played 8 games together as of this recording anyways. Like 8 games is not a lot of time to build complete chemistry. Like they're still doing that. They're still in the process of that. And I know that trades are a natural part of any sport and it's going to happen, but I don't know. I feel like for the first season, I don't even really think that trades should be a thing. I feel like let's just like I know they've already happened. Michaela and I just recorded the show a couple hours ago and we were talking about the first one. But yeah, like let's just be comfortable with what we've got right now and then we'll worry about trades next.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I'm a hoarder.
I agree.
And I don't like getting rid of things when they're mine. I won't even show you the rest of my apartment right now. No, I don't. Just like keep what we got.
Yeah.
I agree. That's the thing. It's so early in the first season, right? Like these players, like you said, have played 8 games together. I think they deserve time to get stuff figured out. Mm-hmm. And I again, despite Ottawa being last in the standings, the difference between 10 points at the bottom and 18 points at the top is not that much when you consider the fact that a win gets you 3 points. Like this point system is so different that I don't think. Also, there's 3 points or 1 point, separating 4th from 6th, and like 4 points separating 3rd. Like it's all very close in the standings. So I'm not concerned necessarily about Ottawa's place in the standings. They only have 2 losses. Like it's really been overtime losses that have killed them. And I do think they're better than their record indicates. And we've seen it. We've seen them slowly get more shots on goal. It's a matter of time. And I do believe it's going to happen. And I think it's really easy to make up ground in this league when you have a point system that lays things out like they do, which I think is great. So yeah, I'm glad to hear that most people are saying the same thing, because I wouldn't suggest changing anything right now. I think you got to give these players time to gel. You can tell personality wise they are. I think it's just going to be a matter of time on the ice.
Yeah, I think Ottawa fans are just so used to losing, especially recently, that they, whether it's the Sens or whether it's the Red Blacks or whatever, they're just so used to losing that they just like, all right, change everything. Got to switch everything. Yep. Get rid of everything.
Clean house.
Yeah, exactly. When really it's like, they've only played 8 games. And before that, they had never played together.
Exactly.
Let's pause. We're going to be okay. And so then it's just constantly like I just feel like on social media, it's, the people who are like, everything's going to be okay. It's just constant hugs to people on social media. Like, it's going to be okay. It's going to be fine. Everything's going to work out. We've seen tremendous, of all the teams in the league, I would say, now obviously might be a little bit biased because, being with PWHL Ottawa, but I would say their chemistry is, if it's not the best in the league, I would say it's top tier in this league. The way that they've come together, the way that both McLeod and Hirschfeld came together and figured out who they wanted, what their identity was, they've been able to instill that. It has nothing to do with chemistry. It's just about, as McLeod has shared multiple times in post-game scrums, is like, it's just the finishing, right? And it just needs a little bit of tweaking and it'll get there. And they've had, they had the international break to work on those fundamentals. They didn't their first game back from the international break wasn't, we don't have to spend much time on that game, but it's going to continue getting better, and it's just a matter of time. And then they're gonna, you'll start seeing more Daryl Watts. You'll start seeing even more, Emily Clark. Those finishers, Mrazova, Tejralova. Like, you're gonna get all of these other players that are gonna start really figuring out. I think it's a lot also to do with the physicality, right? A lot of these players, they're not used to the physicality in women's hockey. So it's also a little bit about just adjusting to that and how they attack the zone, how they transition, all that sort of stuff. So I think everyth's going to be fine is the message.
It's going to be okay.
Everything's going to be okay, everyone. Everything's going to be okay. So we're going to move into the last segment of the show. once again, thank you so much. I'm so sorry this has taken much of your afternoon, but I appreciate it.
This is a good way to spend the afternoon.
Yeah,
This is
absolutely.
I love this.
straight in my head. So this is now the game section, and I'm Vanessa. I am so sorry. There is not necessarily a winner of this, but I could figure it out. If it would help you in this moment, I will declare a winner at the end.
You play to win the game. That was my best.
Exactly. We don't mess around here, folks. We don't mess around.
If you ain't first, you're last.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So this has kind of become, for whatever reason, I've made this a tradition on the show, where it's a game of 20 questions, but it's actually not 20 questions. It's actually like, I don't know, 8 or 9 or something like that. But 20 questions sounds a lot more profound. So we're gonna go with that. So I'm gonna. Oh, it's a lot less than that. Sorry. But we're gonna get into that now. Are you two ready?
So ready.
Yes.
Born ready.
Yeah, Vanessa's very pumped right now. Okay. I'm gonna go. It only makes sense. Vanessa, you go first. If you could only watch one sport for the rest of your life, what would it be and why?
Oh my God, that's so mean.
I feel so good about that.
Oh my God. Okay. I'm going to say, I want to throw up. This question hurts my heart. I love them all. I might say soccer.
Okay. And why?
Because soccer is always on. There are like 1.5 million divisions of soccer across the world. Just for volume's sake, soccer.
Okay. Michaela looks like she's having a heart attack over here right now.
I'm struggling so much. Like, I'm a hockey girl. Everyone knows I'm a hockey girl. I play hockey. Like, I live, eat, and breathe hockey. But I think I might have to say soccer as well. Partially for the reason that Vanessa mentioned. It's always on. There's so many different options, whether it's men's or women's. It's just, there's so many different trophies and leagues and tournaments and everything. And no matter what, you can always find soccer. It's also just like a constant game, right? There's no ad breaks except for halftime, and you're just watching a like constant flow of play. And there's so much drama in soccer, and we talk about this all the time. In women's soccer, there's so much relationship drama, but there's off-field drama and on-field drama, and the players have such great personalities. It's a really close call between soccer and hockey, but right now where I am, I might have to say soccer.
Wow, not the answers I was expecting, but I love it. All right.
I feel so bad about it. I
know. Yeah, I can tell. This is a little bit of an easier question. So I like to start off with the hardest question, I think, and then hopefully work our way up from there. If you weren't in the media, what would you be doing? As a career, obviously.
Oh, I know what I wouldn't be doing, because we actually had this conversation yesterday. I would not be a sea captain.
Really specific.
That was very specific, but I appreciate it.
What would I actually be doing? Ooh.
I love this.
This might just be like wishful thinking, because again, I was very like a solid C+ in almost every sport I played, but I would have loved to be a coach or of something, of hockey or soccer, like just working in the actual like sports operations side of a sports team would be a lot of fun.
Fun fact: I was actually I've been a head coach of a soccer team. It was It was in public school, so like it wasn't anything intense, but I was. So I'll still take that. That's still on my resume.
I might come and pick your brain one day.
Yeah. No, it was. I actually did really well, but it was just luck.
Good team.
Yeah.
What would I do? I guess writer. I like to write.
Yeah.
That's
what I was expecting you to say. Okay, that's
perfect.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. Just so you know, it's tied 1-1. So
Tied 1-1, and we both had the same answer for the first
I
question.
know, yeah, that's why my dog's making the rules, so it's not me. He's actually voting right now. If you could have, this is going to be totally random. These next two questions are going to be totally random, not media related, nothing like that. This is going to be totally random. If you could have dinner with a famous person, living or dead, who would you choose? I feel like Christine Sinclair is going to be on that list.
Ooh. Vanessa, you want to go first? You want me to?
Michael Bolton.
Ah, there it is. I'm not surprised at all.
Yeah.
I in my soul was not ready for that answer. Okay.
Vanessa is a massive Michael Bolton fan.
Okay,
Yeah.
I should have put the follow up being and why. So you're a fan of Michael Bolton.
Love him. Love him more than life itself.
That's fair.
Love him.
Yeah. I mean, I don't blame you. I just wasn't ready for that. Good thing I was sitting down.
A close second would be Dolly Parton.
Oh, look at she also brought props.
Very good use.
Props. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you always been a Michael Bolton fan?
Since birth.
And what's your favorite song?
Probably Steel Bars. I also love Soul Provider, Time Love and Tenderness as well.
A lot more songs than I know of his. Michaela, what about you?
I'm gonna go real obvious on this one. I'm gonna say Sue Bird because I'm a massive Sue Bird fan. It won't come as a surprise to anybody. I've never interviewed her. She's like my holy grail of people I want to interview, but I would just love to pick her brain about I think she came up in basketball in a really interesting time, and she saw a lot of transition in basketball, and I'd love to ask her a million questions, and I love her so much. So Sue Bird.
And she would bring Megan Rapinoe along with her.
That's, you know what? It's a package deal. I'm not complaining.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah. That would be a fun dinner.
It would be.
So just so you know, Isaac has tabulated the votes, and Vanessa, you're now 2-1. So yeah, it was good. It was good.
I gotta come back.
I know it also caught me off guard. I want to know, and Michaela, we'll go with you first on this last question. What's your favorite movie to watch that you could just watch over and over again?
Oh man.
First one that comes to mind. It doesn't
I know her answer. Can I answer for you, Michaela?
Go for it.
Okay, so Michaela's favorite movie is Kill Bill, but she believes that Volume 1 and Volume 2 go together as one movie, so you can't split them up. So it's Kill Bill. And then she gets like 5 hours out of it.
That's very true. And that was my answer. I was going to say Kill Bill is my favorite movie of all time. I could watch it over and over again. I never get bored. However, I'll throw as an honorable mention The Devil Wears Prada, because I have watched that movie so many times. Keep in mind, I'm a millennial, so I remember the days of like W Network where they aired movies like on Saturday mornings and Saturday nights and stuff, and I would just put whatever movie they had on. So I have seen that movie so many times because they used to air it nonstop. Love that movie so much, and I could watch it. It's my comfort movie. When I need a movie on that I've seen a million times, I go with The Devil Wears Prada. But yeah, Kill Bill would probably be my actual answer.
Okay, fair. Vanessa?
Mine would be While You Were Sleeping. Sandra Bullock, 90s. It doesn't get better.
Oh.
I've seen that movie more than 200 times. I could probably do it in my sleep. Like the whole
Well,
script.
you could do it while you were sleeping.
Oh, there it is.
That was good.
Yeah,
do I get a point?
Yeah. Now I was really nervous that this might end up in a tie. I should have done 5 questions because I think we've tabulated the votes once again.
Isaac has spoken.
Tied. Yeah, Isaac has spoken. So we're tied. But it was great. Great answers. Fantastic answers.
Thank you.
Great questions.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's hard-hitting reporting over here. So as we wrap things up today, I just again wanted to say a huge thank you to both of you. I'm so thankful for the both of you to take time out of your schedule, hang out, like I said earlier, chat. This has been so much fun. This is what I was hoping it would be, and so much more. I've really enjoyed this. And before I let you two go, I want to give you an opportunity to hype up She's Got Game.
You want me to like
Where?
go, Michaela?
All right. So you can find She's Got Game across the TSN radio network and wherever you get your podcasts. So whether it be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, wherever you choose to listen to your podcasts, give us a follow, subscribe, like and rate the show very high, please. We really appreciate it. And this week we are talking not almost exclusively, but a lot about Caitlin Clark, obviously. So look forward to us just fangirling about Caitlin Clark for a solid hour and interviewing Diana Matheson.
Oh yes, we do touch on quite a bit of soccer. I had to talk about my Arsenal love as well. So soccer, basketball, hockey. We talk about hockey this week. There's diversity. There's range. We have range.
Okay, so I just want to quickly revisit the scoring sheet for just 1 second and just say I may actually have to give an extra point to Vanessa because I feel like she just channeled her inner Michael Bolton there for just a moment and provided an incredible background audio for your little. Yeah, exactly. So in this case,
I can't compete with beatboxing.
No, I know, and it was
neither can I.
Someone's practicing. So. All right. And there you have it, folks. For Michaela Schreiter and Vanessa Sanchez, I'm Chris Sinclair, and this has been the Rinkside Rundown podcast. Cheers.